and they try to keep it as affordable as possible. And so also, when you have a competitive tax rate, then that really helps spur economic growth and development. It allows people to reinvest in their business and create new jobs. And that is working. I mean, Iowa has a great economy. I know that as a state, we've been named one of the top financial states in the country. I know we've got our reserves are full. We're able to fund our priorities in education, healthcare, and public safety. So I think we will see probably elimination of the income tax. It probably will take several years before that gets done, but it doesn't necessarily mean that sales tax or any other tax goes up to do that. And that's a result of basically tax credits and exemptions that are out there that need to be looked at as well.
So we're gonna take a break for a brief teachable moment here. As you guys, how many of you guys are in speech classes here? So I spent a little bit on this display, and then I stepped on the cord, so the display disappeared. So as you're giving your speeches, things will happen, even if you've been doing this for several years, and it's okay. So there you go. Anyway, we had a question here. Let's go there.
So I guess I've been pretty disillusioned with politics lately because of this like extreme partisanship.
I'm with you.
In politics, but like within my own friend groups and within the people I know. So I guess how can we attack that?
That is so important, I can't even tell you. And a guy named Scott Racker, who works at Drake University, is working to bring back civility in politics. You know, when I first got into politics, people were much more civil than they are today. And now it's almost become a religion to people. And depending on who you support for president, if you're not supporting the right person, if you're supporting somebody different than me, then we can't be friends anymore. And why? Because when you're supporting somebody, you stand for every single thing that they stand for in their lives, from when they are 55 years old down to when they're, 13. And so, you know, if this person did something back when they were 13 that they shouldn't have done, then you support those kind of people too. And that's just not the case. And we need more statesmen and more stateswomen in this country, back like it used to be. We need people to agree to disagree. They get into debates, but don't make it personal. Debate the issue. And when you're done debating, get together and go out and have lunch or have coffee. That used to happen. It doesn't happen as much anymore because we have become so hyper-partisan. And I think that's part of the problem. We need to work together for the betterment of the people. That is what we do on the West Des Moines City Council every day with Republicans, Democrats, and no parties, is we look at our community, we see what the need is out there, and we work to address that need. And if it's, whether it's a Republican ideal or a Democrat ideal or no party, if it's something that makes sense and it can help the people, then we work to get that done. And it's just going to take people like you, like me, and others to stand up and put an end to this. Not everything is black and white. Not everything needs to be Republican and Democrat. It didn't used to be. We can go back to that. But people are going to have to stand up and say enough is enough. Let's work together for the betterment of all.
You know, I really applaud Governor Reynolds for endorsing Ron DeSantis. I don't really agree with Ron DeSantis by any means, but she's really standing up to Donald Trump, who violated many of the norms of our democracy for many years. And I would deliver that right to his door as to why our country is so divided and divisive. He is responsible for a lot of that right now. So I wouldn't say it's evenly divided. I would say he has a lot of that to account for. Somebody who is in a courtroom and talks back to the judge and says awful things, and just, I mean, that is just so far away from our values as Americans and our decorum as people. I mean, that is just not acceptable to me as a person, to watch this unfold, especially in front of young people. It's embarrassing. So I was really glad to see that happen. Like I said, I don't agree with DeSantis at all, but I was really glad to see Governor Reynolds stand up to the bully, Donald Trump.
So one of our questions, this is from an ICI student. It says, is Donald Trump going to be able to run in the presidential election? And if he is elected to be president, how would this situation affect him?
I don't think he's gonna be able to run. I think he's gonna be a convicted criminal, and I think the Constitution is gonna stop him from running. I truly do. I think there'll be several states that will not put him on the ballot by the time the election rolls around.
So I'm not paying attention to a lot of that stuff. I believe in the process. I think the process is it's gonna work things out through the process, and what's gonna happen is gonna happen. You know, if he goes through it and he's found, you know, not guilty of these things that he's being charged with, then I think that he will be allowed to run for president because he hasn't done anything wrong, and the court has found that. You know, now what exactly happens with that, I don't know, but I trust the process, and what's supposed to happen is going to happen on that one. But it really has become quite a distraction to everything else that's going on. There's a lot of great candidates that are running out there, and then we've kind of got all this stuff happening over in the background. So, you know, we've got a court of law. We need to trust that court of law on everything, and I think this thing will be vetted and will work its way out, and we'll see what happens in the end.
Okay, do we have another question from the audience? All right.
I'm not a student, but I'm just curious hearing you talk about this too. My own politics aside, in the last general election, a record number of people voted for both candidates, Biden and Trump. With everything you're saying, why do you think people respond so strongly to Trump? All the, you know, the negatives even you're pointing out. What is that response about in our country?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
What does he stand for that gets people to vote for him?
I get your question. I would say what, you know, he's a successful businessman. He's somebody totally different.
That's what I was going to say.
He's somebody
a fraud, Russ. You know that.
He's a businessman. He's somebody different than the typical politician, right? And so people, I think, looked at him and said, this guy's a businessman. He's somebody different. We need somebody different. And so, you know, they liked that about him. They wanted no nonsense. They were sick of the politicians making promises that they couldn't deliver, and they thought they would try somebody else, and he appealed to the people for that reason. I mean, he was kind of no nonsense. He didn't speak the political language. I mean, when he was up on the debate stage, you could tell he was not a polished politician. Now,
He's a documented liar.
I'm not sure how he did in those debates, but somehow he was able to make it through and get the nomination. He beat 16 or 17 pretty good other candidates that were running for president on the Republican side, and then ended up coming in and beating Hillary Clinton.
So was he winning this time just by skipping the debates because he doesn't want to be caught in any of his lies?
He's got, well, you know, I'm not going to make any mention of Hillary Clinton in that regard, but
at least she showed up.
But you know, I don't know. It's interesting. He's almost got with a cult following, and we've never seen that before. I mean, if I went out and I said, you know what, instead of Fifth Avenue, we'll call it Fifth Street and Valley Junction, I could go out on Fifth Street and kill somebody and still get elected. There wouldn't be a single person that voted for me.
Right.
They would say, this guy is so cocky and full of himself. I'm not voting for him at all now. I was supporting him, but not now. Somehow Donald Trump is able to do things that other people have not been able to do.
That's definitely where I was coming from,
Yeah.
yes. I think even though I don't agree with him personally, the sheer numbers that turned out are fascinating to me. Yeah.
Less than Biden, though. 7 million less.
That is correct.
Let's hear from Dr. Mark.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment because I found this really interesting as a communication professor. I feel like what Donald Trump did was really laid his foundation. He attacked the press from day one. Day one. They're bad, false. So every time the press says anything, just from my group of friends, I see it happening.
Yeah.
This is what other people have in history have been able to do successfully, is use the media to their advantage, and that's what he does, because as soon as they hear, oh, the press said this about Donald Trump, oh, they're all liars, they all hate him. And I think the press fell into that as a journalist. I think the press fell into it.
And somehow he was able to do this, and he has made it such that I think the media is weaker than they have ever been. He has given them an absolute beating, and now you've got newspapers that are starting to go under. The ratings are down on different news outlets. Somehow he was able to do that when nobody else was. People that would attack the media before him would get attacked themselves and would go down. They would finish him off.
He's a
So,
very persistent bully.
I don't know how he's done it, but he's got a cult following, and his people are very loyal to him and will come out and support him every time. So.
Until they get indicted. Then they flip on him.
Alright, we got right here.
I have a question. A couple years ago, Claire, you got into it with the Iowa Libertarian Party about the Second Amendment, and you told them to be nice to you, or you were gonna take your guns away. Don't you feel that's a form of bullying as well? And why is it okay for you to do it, not Donald Trump?
Well, the Libertarians actually ended up suing me and losing, so you might want to ask them.
Well, did we still have to be nice to you, or you're gonna?
No, I was joking around, so you can ask them.
Okay.
They lost.
Sure. Funny.
And
You should have seen the depositions on that. The back talk on them was
You blocked
hilarious.
everybody, right?
No,
So you can't
actually, I
really
didn't.
block the whole entire Libertarian Party. And
Nope,
they
I
were
did
gonna
not.
take their guns away.
No, I
They weren't
didn't.
nice to you. Yes, you did.
Actually, no, I didn't.
Oh, okay,
You
liar.
can go check on that.
Liar.
well,
Oh, whatever.
here's the
They
interesting.
lost.
Here's the interesting thing about being an elected official is that you are a representative of the people.
Right.
You're not there to represent yourself. I'm there to represent every one of you sitting in this audience. And whether I believe in the issue or not, if you believe in it, I need to be supporting that. And I'll give you an example where that happened. We've got deer management zones in the city of West Des Moines. For basically urban hunting, okay? Because the deer population has gotten out of control and they're not only eating everybody's landscaping, but worse yet, there's a lot of deer versus vehicle accidents that are going on, which is pretty dangerous. So we had to take action and we put in place different deer management zones across the city. We've got Southwoods Park, there's one, and there's a hunting season. Well, there were some people in my neighborhood that I represented that applied to have a deer management zone put in place in my neighborhood in which I live. I am not supportive of that. I did not want one on a 2-acre parcel in my neighborhood. I'm not a hunter, I'm an animal lover. You'll never catch me hunting. But I support other people's rights to do that and whatnot. But the people wanted this. And I reached out and talked to people, that's what they wanted. So I was not in favor of it, but I voted for it anyway. Because that's what the people wanted. And you gotta do that. And sometimes, and what's really hard for people is when you're an elected official, oftentimes you gotta make difficult decisions that you're not gonna make everybody happy. In the city, we try to come up with win-win solutions for everybody. And a lot of times we're very successful, but sometimes we just can't do that. And when you can't do that, you're gonna get criticized. And you're gonna get criticized pretty hard. And even though a certain group of people might criticize you pretty significantly, you gotta take the hits and you gotta do what's right. So even though you may not wanna do something for these people because they've been such jerks to you in the past, you gotta overlook that and you gotta do what's right for the people. It's not easy.
Do we have another question? Okay. Nick.
What are your opinions on Joe Biden?
Why don't you go ahead?
I've known Joe Biden for quite a while. You know, he was not my first choice when he ran for president. He was actually about my 15th choice. So, but I like him. Don't get me wrong. I like him, and I think he's doing a good job. So, you can't rewrite history. At the time he was elected, the field winnowed down